Very warm welcome. This is 3FM Sunrise on 3FM 92.7.
3FM Sunrise.
And the music certainly reflects how we're feeling this morning. How did you sleep? Do connect with us and let us know. Also, what is the weather looking like where you are? It is fairly overcast here in Adisawe in Kanda. Could be different where you are. Again, connect with us. We do this in tandem with you. Find us on the socials. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and also on Instagram. Now, speaking of the weather, let's connect now with Felicity Ahafianyo. She's best placed to tell us what to expect by way of weather. She's a chief forecaster with the Ghana Met. Felicity, hello, good morning.
Good morning, Helen. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I hope you're well.
Yes, I'm much better today than yesterday.
Well, it's looking like a cloudy morning here, at least from where I sit. Are these conditions to prevail? What should we expect?
Yes, you've done a good observation. It's cloudy almost over most portions over the southern sector. Yesterday we had a deep rainstorm that moved over, and currently we are having some small cells that are developing over the Guinea coast, which is going to induce the cloudiness more, with slight to moderate rain occurring over the coast and part of the forest region. So this morning rain is still in for us, those of us in Greater Accra, part of central and western region. Ashanti region, this is likely to come in the afternoon. Then we have a rainstorm, a very big one, but it's still in Nigeria. We are monitoring. And the time frame will be in the evening. So by 4 p.m., we will release a warning when we are certain that the areas that it will affect.
All right, then. So you say we will get advanced a warning as the time approaches?
Yeah, we will definitely do that.
All right, Felicity, thank you so much for that update. And, of course, if anything changes, you will let us know. And that was the weather update with Felicity Ahafianyo again. She's a chief forecaster with the Ghana Met. She says there's a storm brewing. It's in Nigeria at the moment. She'll let us know as it draws closer. But Eric Mawina Egbeta is in the house. Mawina, good morning to you.
Good morning, Helen.
How are you doing?
Blessed and highly favored. Just wish we could sleep more, but...
No rest for the wicked, or you haven't been updated?
Oh, I'm not sure I'm the wicked.
In any case,
I'm not sure I'm the wicked, but anyways,
we'll see. Well, we do have a selection of papers in front of us this morning. Mawana and myself will run through the headlines and then we'll take some details. But of course, for my early risers, do check out 3news.com. We've got the latest in sports, business, world news, and politics. But this morning, I'll start off with the Republic Press, and it has this to say on the front page: Bawumia sells Ghana as he woos foreign investors. It's captured in page 3. Ken Ejapong goes off, descends on Bawumia's devotee for attacking his presidential ambition. NDC backs Tokonu's nomination. Stop stereotype of Fulani community in Ghana speaking there. And NPP presidential primary is not a two-horse race. Dr. Ifria Koto spokesperson also weighing in on that. The Finder newspaper this morning: anthrax outbreak, slaughtering of ruminants banned, and management of Gambaga witches camps calls for support to refurbish hubs. Investor confidence conditions returning, opportunities for private sector back on track. The Vice President again speaking there. The Daily Graphic this morning: anti-corruption plan cure for IMF bailout. Mental health eats up 7% of the GDP. And Justice Doche vows to continue fight for justice. Supreme Court overturns $16 million judgment against Ghana Telecom. And then I've also got the Custodian newspaper here. Minority backs Justice Tokonu's approval. And Ghana back on track. Bawumia woos foreign investors. That story is splashed across the various front pages. And Ken sues Media General Captain Smart for some 10 million Ghana cedis. Mauna, what do you have for us?
Right then, the Daily Guide newspaper. This is one of the many newspapers I have in front of me this morning. The big banner story, economy back on track. That's according to Vice President Dr. Bawumia. It's interesting that he's beginning to speak on the economy now. I'll be interested to know exactly where he spoke at. Minority attacks World Bank boss. NDC MP's U-turn on CJ nominee. And Nana opens Kolebu Teaching Hospital UGMC Psychiatric Center. That's the Daily Guide newspaper. The Ghanaian Times, NHIS to cover mental health, President assures. Outbreak of anthrax, Ministry of Food and Agriculture bans movement of animals within Binduri. SIM card deactivation, more continue to mass up to re-register. Ghana Morocco seal deal for 1.3 billion US dollar fertilizer project in Takrady. The BNFT, also another of the newspapers that I have. 1.3 billion fertilizer complex to be operational in 3 years. They are just taking it off from where I ended off on the Ghanaian Times newspaper. GB Foods GM honored for outstanding performance in food industry. School feeding received 150 million US dollars World Bank funding. PWD owned businesses get 12 million cedis in boost. And regulatory reforms go well for resource governance. Just two more. The Informer newspaper, UEW peaceful as remnants of Afro Brony halted in their tracks. NDC must purge itself of demons. That's according to Zaneto Rollins. Minority thumb up CJ nominee says she's qualified for the post. Munta Castella leader, NDC minority declare. And it's looking the more and more like all is not well. And Ghana's digitalization de-risk businesses, tackles corruption. Bawumia tells UK Summit. We end with the publisher, the new publisher newspaper. Ghana best for business. Bawumia invites foreign investors to the country. NDC minority approves Tokonu as Chief Justice. Man in car bent alive in Kumasi. Ooh, that's dreadful. And then Peace Council writes to Nogoku over Ajenasare. Those are the front page or the headlines on that newspaper.
That story is still trending. Every time there's a new development. I
don't know how they do it, but they keep themselves in the news.
Yes.
I've deliberately not paid attention to it, but it just will not go away.
It will not go away. It's been on the lips of many for days on end now. I don't know how it's going.
On social media.
Very hot topic. We're watching it unfold. The Daily Graphic on page 7 is asking all of us if we're getting enough sleep. Do you get adequate hours of night sleep? They're wanting to find out. I think it's important. I know more and more people are, quite stressed out. They're not sleeping as well as they could be sleeping. So there's an editorial in there talking about sleep. If you're not sleeping well, this is your sign. You are looking for a sign. Here it is. But let's move on to a few more stories. This one actually captured on the front page. Anti-corruption plan, cure for IMF bailout. William, good morning to you.
Good morning.
How are we this morning?
Perfect by grace.
The story on page 7 asking about sleep, that's not one that will interest you because you get a good night's sleep. You don't waste time.
If I owe the World Bank, I sleep there.
you don't mess around with the sleep. Okay, well, the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, SHRAJ, has stated that the National Anti-Corruption Action Plan will save the country from the cycle of returning to the International Monetary Fund, IMF, for economic support. Now, the Commissioner of SHRAJ, Joseph Whittal, in an interview with the Daily Graphic last Thursday, said the NACAP, which was the country's strategic response to corruption, needed the full attention of the government as a major anti-corruption tool to settle on. He said the plan, if fully implemented, would include a robust conduct of Public Officers Act, which would tackle rampant conflict of interest situations with sanctions and ensure a robust assets declaration regime amongst officers in public office. I don't think this one is too complex at all. We know that we lose a lot of money to corruption, a lot of wastage also in the system. So Israj says anti-corruption is the cure for us, returning to the IMF. I think that's certainly very viable. We've spoken about some of the other ways in which we can recoup monies. Government is embarking on, more taxing, more robust revenue mobilization. But what are they doing in terms of those sorts of leakages? I don't know if they've been emphatic enough in letting the people know that they will be sealing those loopholes. The COVID reports that came out that highlighted some inconsistencies. I don't even think that was really tackled with the energy.
The president has said that they didn't do anything wrong with COVID expenditure, and it will be slightly unfair to make a blanket statement that corruption is near normal in this part of town. Obviously, there's a lot of argument about investment made towards the fight against graft, but none of what has been said by the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice is new.
It's nothing new.
It's existed for God knows how long. Everybody knows, one way or the other, that if you stop grafts, you stop the leakages, we'll have enough revenue. So it's really not something new.
Well, they say investor confidence is returning. This one is captured in page 2, and this story you would have gathered has been carried by a number of the papers. But Vice President Dr. Bawumia has told foreign investors that Ghana's economic opportunities for private sector investments are back on track as the country is navigating its way out of the global economic meltdown. He noted that the government is relentlessly refocusing on economic growth and working hard to regain the trajectory Ghana was on and get back to pre-COVID-19 growth numbers. Addressing the third Ghana Investments and Opportunities Summit in London, Dr. Bawumia said government is balancing sound fiscal management with strategic public investments that unlocks growth. Marina, you were surprised that the Vice President is back on the train talking about
I'm surprised he's speaking.
Economics.
I really am surprised. Not that I didn't expect him to speak anyways, but he's been quiet for far too long. When there's been a lot of calls for him to speak to the issues, because he's the economic whiz-kid.
I mean, when there was gold for oil, he came and told us that we're exchanging gold for oil. We've heard him be vocal there.
That policy continues to be challenged even today. The CSOs in the extractive industry and the energy sector, they've continuously punched holes in the gold for oil program. The IMF report has asked for more clarity on that. And so if he's commenting on it and saying that it's the reason why fuel prices were coming down, the gold for oil was there when fuel prices went up.
Well, I was about to say, when there was a marginal decrease, he was quite vocal.
Yes.
When things are going, slightly
and
on the up, he makes
quiet.
an appearance. When things go awry, you don't hear from him. So I thought this was a for better, for worse marriage that we're in. But
well, the informer this morning is saying that Ghana's digitalization de-risks businesses and tackles corruption. And who is talking? Dr. Bawumia. So the concentration has been on digitalization. Because he thinks that, whatever we are saying, if we get it right in terms of digitalization, everything will be solved.
There was digitalization.
Because he said the corruption, the money will not touch your hand for you to steal it. But, who says nobody can still steal money from through the internet? Anyway.
Yeah.
Minority thumbs up. CJ nominee says she's qualified for the post, and Muntaka still our leader according to the NDC minority. And there's peace at the University of Education Winneba as remnants of Afro-Broni halts in tracks. And so the NDC must purge itself of demons. That's according to Senator Ajiman Rollins. The front page of the BNFT. So, as I said, Dr. Bawumia is now on the course of digitalization. You can see from the beginning of, I think, last year or so, he hasn't been speaking wholly on the economy.
That's right.
And yesterday, when he made the comment at the UK summit, the Ghana Investment Promotion Council meeting in the UK, I listened to a bit of it. And he was wooing investors to Ghana, saying that the environment is the best for business. And if we should come, we shouldn't worry, because he has led a charge to digitalize the macroeconomic environment.
Well, we need as much money as we can get, so a wooing of investors is in the right step.
Been
Hopefully,
wooing
things
God knows
stabilize
how long.
even more to make it more attractive for foreigners to come and invest. But speaking about government and its efforts to recoup as much money as possible, GRA task force arrests managers of enterprises for tax infractions. I think we're seeing some extra zeal, if you will, from the GRA in terms of revenue mobilization. We know from reports such as the one done by Imani Africa in conjunction with Oxfam that we lose huge amounts of money. I think they said between 2015 and 2020, for example, tax irregularities alone amounted to some over 9 billion Ghana cedis being lost. But the Ghana Revenue Authority GRA task force has arrested 4 managers of enterprises in Accra for not issuing tax invoices. And speaking about digitalization, we've seen that move to digitalize the tax collection. So this was being piloted with some of the bigger supermarkets. So the GRA inputs the system into your computer. Whenever there's a sale made, they also get fed that data, so cutting out that need for paperwork where people are able to pass the corners and avoid paying the taxes. But the companies are Buildmart Company Ghana at Abraka, Bedard's Coat Supplies in Lashibi, Yard Ventures in Ramobi, and Excellence Boutique at Spintex Road. They naming and shaming. The managers were taken to the customs office at the headquarters for their statements before being handed over to the Criminal Investigation Department, CID, of the police. Now, Mr. Joseph Annan, Area Enforcement Manager of the GRA in charge of Accra Central, said the companies had not complied with Section 41 of VAT Act, which mandated them to issue the tax invoice at all times. A cautionary tale. GRA is out there and so they are hot on your tails.
If they stationed revenue officers at supermarkets, big shops, and
even
all of
hairdressers. I went to get my hair done, and my hairdresser said, Amaya has been here just a few minutes ago. So they are out there.
Yeah, but in some of those instances, these officers are seated at the entrance of these shops, and they check the receipts as and when you buy something and you walk out. They check to see the receipt and see if there's VAT and all of that captured.
So but while we will commend them for what they're doing, the need for them to widen the tax nets is also very, very important, because
that's right.
I mean the number of people who are paying taxes in this country is so minimal, and if we're just going to be concentrating on them and being on their necks, that's okay. I mean, taxes everywhere must be paid, but what are we doing about those who are not captured? I mean, if you go to the real estate industry now, we have a lot of workers, especially coming from neighboring countries, who come and do tiling and POP, as they call it, and all those. How do we get our money from them? So as much as we want to congratulate them on the work they are doing, we should also find modern and more creative ways of collecting taxes from everybody.
Absolutely. I mean, to the extent that 90% of the taxes emanate from the capital alone, is very serious.
We've been speaking about this property tax, and still the assemblies are not taking property tax. So
when they appear before, when we go to people's houses, what they'll be told is one of the things. I think there's still a lot of education as to property tax, because people make the argument they don't know why they'll build their houses and then government will come and be collecting money from them after they paid for the land. That's what I'm saying. There needs to be education as to why they need to pay that.
As for
Because
tax,
here, somebody has bought their land. They had to fight off land guards and try and build. When you immediately a machine or something hits the ground of the earth, somebody comes and is looking for money. The person pays all of those monies, finally is able to put up the house, and then a year or so later, then assembly officials come around and say, they be so to your property tax. The person will look at you and say, why the hell will I have to pay that? So there needs to be education on that front. We can't just say, we have to pay property tax and just leave it as it is. Nobody is willing to pay taxes, and particularly when the enforcement and all of that on the payment of such taxes is not there. Trust me, they will be chased out. And that's a fact. So there needs to be a lot more education, particularly on property tax.
The education must go, but as for taxes, No, I mean, sometimes the explanation or the reasons for taking the taxes may not be clear to you, but once Parliament passes it,
Yes.
but so I mean, the fact that we have property and we have to pay like this TV license fee. I mean, if you go to the UK, for instance, they pay. They don't see why they should pay. But I agree with you. The education is going on, and it's a very serious offense if you don't pay there. But here, because maybe we couldn't do the education well, they have to shelve it. This TV license thing. Yeah. So as for tax, once Parliament passes it, it becomes law. It's not everybody who wants to pay tax, so it doesn't make sense to them if they have their own property and they are having to pay tax on it.
Well, before we wrap this up, this one is captured in the Republic Press, but NPP presidential primary is not a two-horse race. Dr. Free Akoto spokesperson speaking there. Now, as we gear up to that flag bearership announcement, if you will, the former Volta regional chairman of the NPP has indicated that Dr. Wusu Ifri-Akoto, former Minister for Food and Agriculture, must win the upcoming NPP presidential primary slated for November 4. He indicated that the NPP presidential primary is not a two-horse race and that he is of an unwavering conviction that Dr. Akoto is the only one amongst the aspirants who is well positioned to galvanize the grassroots base. I think the pollsters and the analysts would highly disagree.
Well, he says
with
that if he pays the posters as well, he will be ranked favorably in the polls that have been.
What is he suggesting then?
That was his response when he was asked that all the polls he seems to be missing in all of the action, and he says that it's easy for me to also get somebody and so okay, run a poll.
So is he suggesting that the posters are leaning towards?
He just said he can also organize one. The rest of the meaning is yours to
Interesting. I mean, when asked why he wanted to be president, he mentioned, though, I listened to him, I heard him carefully. He said because he wants to lead his party. That's the aspiration. He did obviously come back and backpedal a little bit to say that's not what he indicated. But we all heard him say
if you are going into an election, you just want to listen to posters and you listen to the public. It's up to you. Because what is the public also saying? It's not just what the so-called commissioned posters will say.
That's right.
What's the word on the ground? What are they saying? What's the media saying about your candidate? So at the end of the day, he's entitled to his views and his politics. So as for talk, it's air.
I mean, he also stands by the fact that he says his work in the Ministry of Agriculture, he says he did some good work in the 6 years. He says he laid a good foundation. And I think for most of us, that's been one of the ministries where we've had a lot of questions and that have gone unanswered. That last stance before he left that post, that knee-jerk policy he said he was trying out, I think it failed.
What do you expect?
It failed, and we never had the planting for food and job markets.
What do you expect? What do you expect him to say? That I failed?
Yes, absolutely.
The man was going to pick form to stand for president. You come and say that he failed?
Look, at some point when my colleague Armstrong went to the ministry, officials of the ministry didn't even have an idea of what the planting for food and jobs market was about. So it was solely just one man's idea, mentioned it and decided to just go with it, and everybody else must follow. And so yeah, that's pretty much it. There's some good news though, just to touch on that before we leave. The president says that the National Health Insurance Service will cover mental health as he inaugurated an ultra-modern building facility of the psychiatric department of the University of Ghana Medical School at Kolebu here in Accra, and he's promised to put up a lot more of such facilities before he leaves office. So whether or not you believe him, that's yours.
Very important. Woefully inadequate the resources that are made available for those who are afflicted with mental health issues. But it's some 3 minutes until Johnny is biting. Johnny's Bites comes your way at 6:50. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll make way now. This is still 3FM Sunrise on 3FM 92.7. Tell a friend. Johnny is biting.
3FM Sunrise.